Shanti. Love, love, love. Kyrie eleison, Jai Jai Ram. Ram, 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 Ram. Good morning, everyone. This video is titled Promoting Peace and Abiding Nature. So, the first thing to do with any conversation that you're having that has potential for meaning, I guess you could say, is semantics. So, for example, this was a conversation, which it is in a way, we have to first to define peace and what abiding means. So, to me, I guess what I like saying instead of peace is shanti. So shanti is a Hindu word that means peace as a prayer. Shanti Ram, peace to God. And then abiding in the peace, the abiding nature. So instead of making it about combating unpeaceful things, right, we can choose to promote peace and abide in that nature as it is. So so I feel like we all understand what peace feels like. So, for example, when I was a child, I would sit actually in this room and I would abide in the nature of peace. Like Amitabha Buddha. So, abiding in that is important because that means that you are, one, you're being kind to yourself and to others, because we all crave peace. And then you're also aware. So, for example, the abiding nature, when you're abiding in something, there is a sense of free will and freedom involved in that. Yes, peace can just happen momentarily. As I talked about in the other video, we talked about Satori experiences. Satori experiences, some people like to, it sounds weird using the word peak, Zen. But the idea of it is that it is kind of a peak, meaning like peekaboo. And you see Zen in the sense that you see clearly whatever is the case. And there's a very strange sense of unlimited freedom with Zen. So, promoting peace, abiding in the nature of peace. When we have Zen, we are able to perceive clearly without unnecessary amounts of baggage, judgment, or concern. So the reason Zen, I feel it is kind of a salve, is because, let's use this as an example. This is a citrine stone. So citrine essentially has the attributes of high vibration, meaning it is happy. So the idea of citrine is that so what we want to do when we're abiding in the nature of peace is be like citrine. So citrine sits happily. So why is promoting peace important? Maharaji, essentially being the incarnation of Hanuman, of unconditional love. Let's put it this way: the attributes of love are peace, happiness, joy, purpose, understanding, resilience, an unimaginable, dare I say, infinite strength of the heart. What else? To be surrendered to the experience at hand. So, for example, for me, if I was doing therapy sessions with people and they were in confusing mental states, I would gently lead them into a Zen state in which there isn't much going on. And then the, I guess, other part that isn't separate from Zen is there's a kind of stillness and a joy in that. And the nice part about it isn't a religion or a belief or anything of that nature. So to me, I feel Zen is sanity. And I feel that if you want to understand the difference between insanity and sanity, is that there is a willingness to accept. So, for example, if someone has what we would call right mind, that means that they are coming from a place of stillness, presence, peace, and are open. So, for example, in us, for to be open is a pretty vulnerable thing on this planet. So, for us to be alive, to be open to being alive, it sounds very simple and straightforward, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem to not need to be said. There's a reason I'm saying that, because a lot of people are unconscious to the point of despair. And to me, what shifts that is first accepting it. So when we first accept what it is that is the case fully. So for example, I outline this, one of my spiritual practices is to accept the actual situation, meaning like the physical part of the situation, whatever it is that's going on. So for example, if your cat ran away, accepting the fact that this cat is now gone from your home. And then accepting that how you feel about the cat being gone. And then being able to move in alignment with that. So, for example, if we don't do that, we are moving in a way that wouldn't necessarily be conducive for joy and for understanding Obviously, I don't know if anyone has heard of it's like a Punnett square. It looks like a Punnett square. As much as I love biology, it's not a Punnett square. It talks about importance, urgency, and then the different levels of the combinations of urgency and importance. So, for example, if something is urgent, okay, the pot on the stove is boiling over. That's urgent. Is it important? Well, okay, my car has a flat tire, but I don't need to drive it until next week. The second one is of more importance. The first one is of more urgency. So that's a way of understanding. So, for example, these are essentially laws that I came up with that are spiritual, or that the universe is giving to you through me, that are ways of uh, essentially living joyfully and not ignoring anything. So the idea is that when we're in a state of ignorance, it means we're ignoring. That's literally how I interpret that. So, for example, denial. If we're in a state of denial, um, strangely enough, we'd have to accept the denial first, and then you'd see, if you're keen, the part of you that's accepting the denial is actually the real you. So that's kind of how a lot of this game works with us waking up. When you hear the gurus talking about, which I include myself in that group now, actually, of consciousness. For example, Ram Dass had a drug experience that was enjoyable. I personally do not enjoy drugs, and I don't feel that I need them. Um, but maybe at some point, if I have the right people around me, I could do it again. Um, but he took some acid, some LSD, before he had met Maharaji, and he went to India. Um, and this does relate to peace and the abiding nature, by the way. And he sat on a couch, and he saw that his body was disappearing. And he saw that all of it went. And he saw that what remained there was a point, what I would call a geometric infinite point. Some people call it the 0 point field. You can call it the heart of God. It doesn't really matter that much what you call it. And the consciousness is all that is there. So, for example, this is why the Buddhists, they sit by the funeral pyre. Not necessarily a good activity for a lot of people that aren't actually in a place of acceptance yet. But also, we're kind of at the mercy of God and the expansion of the universe in that sense. So sometimes those experiences, to help us evolve, they come in to our experience. But anyways, so the idea of this is that when the reason that the Buddha has peace is because there's an understanding. So the understanding is that stay in the place of reality. So, for example, a lot of people call that staying in the now. You can call that whatever you want to call that. So for me, that would just be consciousness itself. Consciousness itself does not have a skin color. It does not have an identification with anything particular. So, this is basically the basic tenets of a lot of spiritual teachings. Consciousness is as it is. But I don't think that our jobs as spiritual teachers are to repeat the same kind of, things over and over. For example, if you really wanted to do that and take it to the extreme, then just say Ram forever. Ram, 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 still Ram, 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 Ram. Right? So the idea of it is that when you pray, the reason in the Bible it says pray ceaselessly and fervently, and I dare say earnestly, with integrity. Yep, integrity. So the reason that that is the case is because it's taking your mind's attention and putting it on reality, the reality of spaciousness, of consciousness, and pure being, what a lot of Buddhists would call the pure land of Buddha. In the Bible, they have an equivalent of that called the land of milk and honey, paradise. You can call it complete trust and surrender town, right? So the idea of it is that isn't a place and it isn't a word, right? So when you get to a point where your soul or your incarnation is tired, you end up essentially, hopefully sooner rather than later, attuning yourself to that, and I dare say that alone. And then you begin to recognize that. And then as you recognize that, you your life becomes in service of that. That being the I am that I am. There's a quote by Nisargadatta Maharaj where he said he was a saint who smoked and would throw oranges at people, apparently, in India, and very fiery and non-judgmental, which is a relief from a lot of the, people that unfortunately we seem to give our power of attention to. So his quote was that my life flows between everythingness and nothingness. And that the dance of, I'm paraphrasing it. Oh, no. Let me say it correctly. My heart, no, how does it go? Am I getting this wrong? My heart tells me that I am everything. My spirit tells me that I am nothing. Between these two, my life flows. So that's basically the idea of, there's so many different factors to it, because now I want to talk about Tai Chi and the yin yang. So essentially, in my book, My Own Religion, the Power of Love, which hopefully be published at some point, if there's any publishers, you can send me an email at jvertino, JVERTINO at buffalo.edu, JVERTINO at buffalo.edu. If you are interested in publishing the book, highly recommend it. I feel the world needs it. That's why I wrote it. In that book, I talk about how the love of God essentially transcends our judging. So, for example, Ram Dass talked a lot about all of the, inner workings of our sexuality, and how culture puts on this kind of like cap of judgment, So the idea of it is, so for example, working with the lower chakras, fear, guilt, and shame are what need to be transmuted and healed and eventually kind of lived out fully. And then, so for you to move into the higher ones. So the idea of this is the root chakra is blocked by fear, the sacral is blocked by guilt, and solar plexus is blocked by shame. So the idea of this is that using love as a energy to transmute all of the lower perspectives in that sense that aren't quite promoting peace. So, for example, so the idea of it is that how do we really attune ourselves to peace? Love. So, loving yourself and seeing, I guess you could say, seeing the outside as an extension of this, right? This being consciousness. For some reason, I like to see consciousness as visually, it seems like a golden light. A lot of times there's a white light. So consciousness as it is. Well, I had said, I think in my book or in another video, I am healing with you. So, for example, I'm not a martyr, right? I'm not interested in passing away for you. Jesus already did that. And in fact, everyone who has passed away today kind of already is doing that. They already did that. So the idea of it is that what can I give to you? Right? So that's essentially how this works. I know that my soul incarnated on this plane of existence for a divine purpose to essentially share the wisdom that I have collected throughout ageless time, and to be able to share that, right? So for me to be able to even have this venue to promote essentially enlightened consciousness, non-attachment and unconditional love, is a grace. Even if no one resonates with this, I'm used to that. It feels good to me to talk this way, actually. And I guess my hope is that, in a way, that my successes could aid you. So, for example, apparently I can take any amount of pain and suffering. Seems to be the case. Now, I guess, what can I use that gift of being able to suffer well to aid you with? Well, what does it show you? It shows you that the heart can bear it all, and that it does. But then you have choices. So the idea of it is that your choices matter and they affect things. If we talk about nihilism and meaninglessness, the reason that I believe meaninglessness or nihilism exists is to provide relief for the mind. So, for example, when we get caught in the mind of self-judgment, also known as a conditioned mind, which is healed through Zen, in my book, we are allowing ourselves to access a deeper reality of who we really are. So the way to do that is to stop judging. The reason that nihilism exists is as you're going, because the universe is constantly seeking balance, right? And it wants to be centered. We will go to an extreme because we're part of this cosmic experience that we call the universe. Zen is this thing here. Okay. So, for example, if you talk about politics, that's an extreme. So the idea of it is that if we can understand our mind, so understanding the mind. So if the mind is judging, then allowing silence, that silence doesn't come and go. Words come and go. Unless you're on drugs. So the idea of it is that, so let's go back to the point of it, promoting peace. Abiding, a lot of times they'll call it abiding in the nature of the self, right? The self. So if we're talking about the self, as opposed to a self, so the reason that we abide in the self is because the self is all the other selves, but it has the understanding of unconditional love, right? So you're talking about peace. You should be feeling pretty peaceful now. The reason for that, besides me being a healer and having intuitive gifts and sensing energies and understanding how things resolve, I'm a Reiki master energy healer. So it's kind of my niche. The cool thing about this is that it's not just about energy healing. It's not just about being a Reiki master. It's not just about an occupation. Reiki, in its essence, working with you when there is a actual communication energetically with the Reiki master, which I am, what happens is it aids you in removing, you call it blockages, removing all of these apparent points of interest. Let's put it that way. So there's points that will come to you in your field of attention, and those points are there for a reason. So instead of ignoring them and being in denial, Reiki allows you to feel safe enough to look at them, to feel into them. And as you do that, from that place, you begin to find resolution. Okay? That's how I work as a healer. So, and it's just perfect, I feel. Promoting peace, abiding in the nature of the self. The reason I talked about Nisargadatta Maharaj and a lot of the other teachers earlier in this video is because that's their niche. That's what their divine purpose is, to abide in the self. Paramahansa Yoganandaji's purpose was to attain an understanding of Indian enlightenment, as he put it, no judgment, and then with his master's blessing to go to Los Angeles in the 1920s and to start the International Self-Realization Fellowship, which is an absolutely lovely place, by the way. I walked around there and I sat in the grove next to the waterfall, and I had what I think of as a spiritual, energetic communion with the soul of Paramahansa Yoganandaji and the Spirit of God, and it was awesome. So whatever modality, I guess, that you choose to use to access the self, is fine. But I'll share, yeah, my personal experience of what I feel works. The 5 Reiki principles. So these are essentially my key to promoting happiness, peace, love, and joy, which I feel is enlightenment itself. Just for today, I will not worry. It's number 1. Just for today, I will not be angry. Just for today, I will do my work honestly or earnestly with integrity. Just for today, I will be kind to all. Just for today, I will be grateful. So the idea of this, why is this promote peace? Well, you're not dumb. Think about it. What are the things that we get caught on? Worry, anger, disingenuous, not disingenuous, ingenuous, uh, non-integrity based work, and a lack of kindness, which comes from actually a lack of, it comes from ignorance whenever someone's being unkind, and lack of gratitude. There are children in Africa that are supremely happy, and they do not have computers. Okay, so so for me, that the 5 Reiki principles are essentially my building blocks for moving through life in a way that is what I like to say conducive for joy, joyful living. If I was ever to be in a community, that would essentially be the motto, joyful living. So anyways, I don't want to make the video too long. It's at a half an hour or so. Ram, thank you. God bless. Bye.